Good evening, everybody. It's Friday night. You know what that means. It's time for your favorite streaming show from the Troth. It's probably the only streaming show from the host, but hey, here we go. Althing Considered. I am Lauren Crow. I am president and CEO. I almost call myself Steer, which is what we phased out. President and CEO of the Troth. With me tonight is my friend Sarenth, Odin's son. Sarenth, introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Sarenth Odinson. I am the co-host of Around Grandfather Fire and Three Pagans on Tap. You can find Three Pagans on Tap most Tuesdays, first Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. For Around Grandfather Fire, we are a podcast that specializes in topics in spirituality, animism, polytheism, and everything in between that touches on all those areas. We have new co-hosts as of this last broadcast, which we just introduced, which is Snow, which is our UK steward here at the Troth, Emily Streaking Fate, which is a wonderful heathen spirit worker, and Cabra, who is from Steel City Witch, you can find on YouTube, has wonderful explanations of a lot of varied occult topics, and a wonderful personal friend of mine. So I am a heathen spirit worker myself, and a lot of my interests and draw in the Troth came from that. So thank you for having me on.
I'm always excited to have you here. And in addition, Sarenth is one of the people that is working on the revamp of our esoteric program. And so I'm really excited about that. We're going to launch that in the new year, completely revamped, working on trying to build an actual heathen-centric program of esotericism that is not centered around appropriating indigenous or belief and practice, appropriating Sami practice, appropriating from Kabbalah and Jewish practice. So really, really excited to see what you and Kat and Crystal are going to come up with that. So.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this, and the opportunity to kind of get on the ground floor and revamp the esoteric program. Yeah, that is something that I've been very excited about since you asked me on, and since folks started talking about it. The thing about heathen esotericism in my own life is that it touches pretty much everything. Part of the reason I'm here as part of the Troth is in no small part because my esoteric path kind of meandered me to and fro, and I found my way to the Troth.
Yeah, and I understand, although we have very different esoteric paths. You know, you're a heathen spirit worker. I am a dirt witch, as I call myself. I'm a traditional, I practice traditional Ozark folk magic. It definitely does. When you're someone who practices something like that, it deeply ingrains yourself in like all parts of your life, and you kind of end up, I think sometimes it becomes such a part of your life, you forget that it's actually what it is. It's like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, well, I'm marking this candle and burning it because this guy's harassing me. And you say it so matter of factly, like you're cooking dinner. People are like,
yep.
Oh.
Yeah, I've gotten some looks at work because I'm like, well, I'm gonna go do some Galder and I'm gonna go handle this situation. And I'm like, okay, what the hell is that? And you forget because you're so used to swimming in these waters, you know, that not everybody knows what you're talking about.
I think people were weirded out the most at work because I put some hex bags on the back of my computer monitors because I was having some issue with some code. And so my coworker's just like, what is, I said, just, it's weird pagan stuff. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, just go with it.
Yeah, a lot of people at work just accept that it's just weird pagan stuff I do. They just go with it.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm really excited though to see what you're going to bring in, and I'm excited to have you here because you and I do practice differently. So I think we're going to give some really different, and also not that we've got different influences. We come from different parts of the country.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think we're going to have different input on how about Yule and like practicing Yule, how to celebrate. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
So let's talk a minute about the news of the week. So we have one story to talk about, unfortunately. And if you have not seen, our clergy director and elder, Dinah Paxson, was attacked in her home along with her son last Friday. She is fine. Her son is fine physically. The person who arrested them is a relative, or who assaulted him is a relative and has been arrested. However, we are still asking. I know she is still asking for prayers for healing. As someone who's been a victim of a violent crime, sometimes it can take a while for that to really hit you. So I'm reaching out, I guess, to the community to ask to continue to send prayers of healing for her. Still, physically they're still recovering, but also mentally and spiritually, and also prayers of protection, because Diana's home, Great Haven, has really been a haven for artists, for pagans, for people in the SCA, misfits and weirdos of all kinds. And so to have this place that has been such a haven and a safe place for so many people be violated is very hard for really her whole community. And I just want to say a very special thank you and kudos, and I can't express with words what I'm trying to say to her kindred Hrafnar, for being there, for taking care of everything and making sure that she is taken care of.
Yes. Thank you all for your, not only your heartfelt work, but your swift work, because it's not easy to respond to a crisis and respond quickly and effectively.
And I mean, literally, it was a wonderful, the people who kept me, I was kept very up to date on everything going on, and we were very worried, and it was hard. It was hard because it was hard to get information, because a lot, when someone is a victim of a crime, a lot of times hospitals will restrict visitors completely. And that was the case. And so we didn't get a lot of information until Sunday, really, but we're very grateful that she's okay, that her family's okay, but just continue to lift, I almost said continue to lift her up in prayer, because I was raised I was raised Baptist. And it just happens.
It really does. I mean, sometimes the past comes rolling out of your mouth, and it's like, all right, where did that come from? Serious kudos, though, to all the communities that she's attached to, and their swift response to what was a pretty traumatic and rough situation. And kudos especially to the hospital for restricting the environment like that. Some hospitals do not do their security protocols very well, and I'm happy to see the hospital did.
And I would just, people, do you mind if I take a minute in defense of Diana Paxson? I'm going to be honest here. A lot of people seem to want to try to gotcha with Diana. So I'm going to lay a couple of facts out for folks that I think are really important. Number one, Diana has been in the pagan community longer than most people listening to this podcast or watching this have been alive. So I want to put that down there first, right?
Right.
Diana has been in the pagan community since the early 80s, at least, probably longer. That's all I know for certain, because from interviews I've done with her. Number two, Diana has written more about paganism than I've probably read. She's written more books. Okay, she hadn't written more books than I've read, because I read a lot, but you get what I'm saying. Diana has been a huge contributor to what you know about modern paganism. Do you have to agree with everything she says? No. No. Diana has also held together a kindred for longer than most of the people watching this have been alive. She's held together a kindred longer than my brother has been alive. And as someone who's held together a kindred for 20 years this year, that's hard. Yeah. That's really hard. Yeah, it's rough. And
Mimi's Brunner Kindred has been around for maybe since 12, I want to say. So yeah, 12 years, and it's not easy, even with a small kindred like ours. People come, people go, things happen. Yeah, it's rough.
And so let's add just one more thing to this little rant here. Diana has written things that in now, 30 or 40 years later, might have some things in them that are objectable because language changes.
Yeah.
But guess what? Some of the things that people are getting mad about, like she did use a slur for the Sami,
Yep.
right? In an essay written in the early 90s.
Right.
I said something about that to several people, and they didn't know it was even a slur. Now, in the year of 2023. So maybe we can back off an 80-something-year-old lady and respect the stuff she's done and not be such jerks. I'm just saying, because the woman has given her life to this religion.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, just maybe, we can just respect that and let her be an 80-something-year-old lady who's done a lot for us. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a rant, and especially with Diana getting hurt, and my heart, the first thought I had was that she's passed. And then even after this has hit the news, to still see some people saying some terrible stuff about her, I have been mad about it all week. So sorry, guys. There is your Lauren rant of the week. Yeah.
I think that, there are some things which, when she told me that there was a new edition of Taking Up the Runes coming out, and I will stand by the statement, and I'll say it publicly. Like, I don't think she needs Thorson's shit in her book. And that's my personal view. And I think that her work stands on its own merits. Yes, there's absolutely things in her books that I would change, but I'm not her. It's not my book. And I'm also not in a relationship with that publisher, which is also a mitigating factor.
Yeah, because guess what? Publishers will tell you can't take that out.
Yep.
And you know what? You don't have a choice. And that, I think, is something that has to also be understood. I think a lot of people also don't understand the context of what heathenry was like 15, 20 years ago.
No.
Yeah. And how
we've come a long way.
Yeah. I guess because I lived in that time, I understand it. But yeah. So, yes. So let's talk about announcements before I continue to rant.
Absolutely. Go for it.
So we got a couple of really cool things coming up next week. I don't have the exact time and date yet, but check our socials, as well as you can check here on wherever you're watching the stream, because it will be put up. We're going to have a live Yule ritual streaming. And the Reverend Maura Durkin's going to be doing that for us, one of our Troth clergy. Next Friday night, we will not have a live show. Instead, we will have a pre-recorded show, which will be various panel members and other Troth members who are going to be reading Yule stories for your kiddos. So while it will premiere and run at the usual time, it will also be available on our channel for you to watch throughout the holiday season. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah, I am too. I'm going to do the Ukrainian story about the spider in the Christmas tree.
Oh, cool. This is not one I've heard. I've heard of it, but I've never heard it.
Yes, I love it. It's one of my favorites, so I'm going to be doing that one. And also coming up on the 12th through the 14th of January, you want to come to the biggest birthday party I have. It's called Winter Troth Moot. It is it's my birthday. I call it my birthday party because, Yep. And what this is, it is a 2-day event. Starts on Friday afternoon, goes through Sunday. And it is a virtual conference where we are going to have rituals, workshops. We're going to have a screening of a documentary from the National Religious Coalition Against Torture. We're going to have a DJ Ben spinning the hits one night. Awesome. We're going to have a lot of really cool stuff going on. I'm really excited. And in fact, tomorrow or Sunday, I will probably be sitting down and setting the schedule. So we'll know exactly what we're having, because today's the deadline for workshops. So really excited. I know for sure there's going to be an Odin and Bragi ritual that is already being written by our Odin devotional group. So it's going to be awesome. And then, of course, coming up in April, you want to go to Costa Rica.
I know I do.
Yes. So the 13th through the 16th of April is Frith Forge 2024. It's going to be in Costa Rica at Hotel de Bosque. And registration is going to open tomorrow, I believe, or Sunday. They were having a little bit of issues with registration, but I'm really excited. It's going to be hosted, of course, by the Troth and the association Ásatru in Costa Rica, run by a great group down there. And it's going to be a wonderful time to come together with inclusive heathens from all over the world, from groups all over Europe, Central and South America, North America, to talk about inclusive heathenry. We actually have a couple of pretty important things we want to discuss, and I think it's going to be a wonderful time to really learn about inclusive heathenry, learn about how we practice differently around the world. One of the things I learned from the group in Costa Rica is how they rectify our kind of very seasonal ritual calendar with an area that has no seasons.
Right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that too. Like, how do you square this round peg?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is like, it really shows how our religion is so adaptable. So I'm very excited about that. So that's going to be coming up. All the information on those are on our website. So go check that out at thetroth.org. It's our brand new website where we have all kinds of great information, including the largest free library of information on heathenry on the interwebs. So very excited. So tonight we are talking about Yule, and we're going to do something a little different. We're going to kind of give a very, very TLDR brief overview of like Yule, the historical perspective, but I do mean very brief because quite honestly, knowing the history is cool and it can give you some ideas, but what year is it again?
Right, 2023. And the historical heathen way of doing things is fabulous and all, but we live in the here and now. We're the heathens being the heathens.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And so Yule, of course, being one of the three high holy days that are mentioned in the lore. It's one of the attested holidays we have that we know for sure. Mm-hmm. So there are fights about when to celebrate it. There could be winter solstice Yule or midwinter Yule. You know what? Whenever you celebrate it,
that's when Yule is.
Yeah, exactly. Because, quite frankly, I don't know about you, but especially if you work in retail, you work in some sort of job that requires you to work a lot this time of year. My husband works in insurance. It's the end of the year. Congratulations. Yule is going to be celebrated when you celebrate Yule.
Yeah. For us, it's an interesting combination of, so my wife works a day job. I work a midnight job. So it's kind of a catch as catch can when it comes to holidays for our family. And it just so happens that this year I have the day off, but I go into work that evening. So, and I work in security. So it's not a job where I'm like, I feel like calling in today and I just can't make it. And, I appreciate that you all are short staffed, but you're just going to have to lump it. Like a lot of times, if you don't have the time to take off, you got to show up and you celebrate your holidays when you can. And unfortunately, the calendars they're just not set up for us.
And for me, I'm of the opinion of winter solstice Yule, midwinter Yule. Why not both?
Right.
I mean, I never turn down an excuse for a holiday. Let's be honest. And, it doesn't really matter. The point, I personally think that if you have kids, winter solstice Yule is better just because of the fact that your kids are probably out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just easier. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
So. And the thing is, like what's the heart of what you're celebrating, right? Like,
right.
If the historicity like really, really matters to your group, that's great. Like, be as historically, informed as you want to be, or not. But like, what does the holiday actually mean to you, your family, your group, yourself?
And that's the thing. Yule also can be more than one day. There are some people who just celebrate on the day. There are some people who do 3 days. There's some people who do 12 days, which is what I do. I normally do ritual first day. I will do Mother's Night the next day, and then I will do a final ritual at the end of the 12 days.
Gotcha.
And that is mainly because I like to use that time period to be very focused on a few things, which we'll get into. But to me, Yule really is a season of giving, of generosity, of being, of sharing, a family, not just like, but like family, the people you consider family. It is a very much a time that I used to center on hospitality, generosity, and frith. And I do believe that those are really kind of the core of the season.
Yeah, I'd say, generosity, frith, and the way you comport yourself. I mean, like that's basic heathen ethics, right? So,
Yeah.
To me, like that's a continuation of Yule writ large, and of course, there's the gift giving, which for us, it'll take place a little bit with Yule and a little bit with our family's Christmas. For us, Yule is a time where we share spiritual gifts with each other. So, like last year, for instance, my daughter received her first Mjolnir because she'd been asking about that for a while, and so I said, "Well, okay, fine. What one do you want?" And we looked at a couple websites, and she said, "Well, I want one like you're wearing, Daddy." So she got this, and then I said, "Okay, well, we'll get that for you." And she's like, "Well, can I get a chain with it?" And I said, we'll see." She ended up getting the chain for her birthday because I said, "Well, we'll see if you can handle wearing the Mjolnir to school or not." And she showed she could, so she received the chain for her birthday. And so Yule for us is a lot of times where we share spiritual gifts or things that are like really deeply meaningful for our communities or heathen paths. And then a lot of the more secular things we'll save for family get-togethers around Christmas.
Yeah, for me, Yule tends to be when I do the gifting exchange and celebrating with my heathen family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then where Christmas is where I am celebrating as part of my connection with my very Christian family. So, it's not so much about, I mean, I do like the idea of spiritual gifts, but for us, it is because in my family, I am the only heathen. My husband's an atheist and we don't have children. That's the time when I give gifts to people in my kindred and my godson, and even give gifts to my friends who I consider family who aren't necessarily heathen, but they're not my non-Christian friends, let's just say, or my the people in my life that I consider very important. Whereas, Christmas to me is solely about my parents, my brother, my sister-in-law. Like, that's it. And that's because I love them dearly, but if it were not for them, I probably would not celebrate Christmas at all. It's just that I respect my parents, I respect my brother, and so I do that. It's one of the few times a year I get to see my brother because he lives so far away. But I recognize that there's such a plethora of different ways that people do that, and if you are heathen, there's nothing wrong with celebrating Christmas. I mean, at this point, I think Christmas has lost most of the religiosity.
Yeah, which it kind of there's a little bit of a sadness there. I grew up Catholic with a very liberal church where questions were allowed to be asked. I had a very, very patient priest. And the church that I grew up in was very open and forward facing, and hey, this is about the impact you make on the world. Let's make the positive impact. So it's kind of a dual-edged sword, I think. Like, on the one hand, yeah, more of us can get together, celebrate, and be in each other's presence and share, but it's also some of the deeper symbolism is kind of drained away from the holiday season in lieu of let's just buy each other plastic crap, which I'm starting to see a backswing on, more towards the spirit of the season, You know, whether it's the Yuletide lighting of the fire and bringing people around the hearth, or whether it's the Christmas season and celebrating the gifts of spirit and things like that, or when it comes to all the various holiday celebrations around this time of year, I'm seeing, at least in the communities that I'm part of, more of a, hey, let's get together and just share a meal and share this time together. Even Three Pagans on Tap is doing a thing where we didn't realize we were here on the Troth. We didn't realize the Troth was doing a storytelling either at the same time, but we ended up organizing a little storytelling get together that will be launching the 26th of December on our channel. And this is just like a trend that I'm seeing across a lot of communities right now, where this season really is bringing people together to sit around fires, digital or physical or both, and really sharing in community in a much more dynamic way than maybe even our most recent forebears did.
Yeah, and I think part of that comes down to the past few years and how isolated we had to be from family and other people. And I do think that is important. You know, to me, one of the things you talk about sitting around the fires. One of the things that we are planning right now is to, on the actual solstice, is to sit down. We'll have dinner. We'll, exchange gifts. We'll have ritual, and then we're going to sit around on my back porch with a fire and just basically wait and greet the sun. That is our plan for that night.
See, I love this. I've had at least a couple of my own friends who hold long night vigils like that. And well, I'm going to be holding a long night vigil that evening, whether I want to or not, because I'm working.
Yeah, you got it. See, there you go. Problem solved.
Maybe I'll take an LED candle with me into work as a kind of like a little Yule log.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, we can be adaptable in these things, even when we have to go to work,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And I think it's going to be really cool. I'm really excited. I think that being a heathen and allows us a lot of flexibility in that regard. Because quite frankly, I think if the ancient Germanic peoples had access to what we do, they would certainly be doing things. They would not be trying to do primitive, whatever. They'd be like, cool, electricity, cool, battery operated candles. That's so much safer.
Neat, a lighter.
Awesome.
Right. Yeah, I think that as somebody who deeply loves his sacred fires started by hand, by flint and steel and all that, I think that you can miss the forest for the trees. Like, why are you going through all the trouble of lighting your fire with flint and steel? What's the point? What's the deeper message? What are you trying to get back to? And what are you reaching for? And are you actually reaching for it, or are you reaching for just pure aesthetic? Which, if that's what your vibe is, that's fine. But I think that it kind of behooves us to think about, why am I lighting the fire this way? What am I doing? How am I doing it? Does it actually carry meaning for me, or is it just something I'm doing? And that for me is like that plays into every holiday. There are some holidays that I don't celebrate on the heathen calendar, either because scheduling is a thing, or the meaning of the holiday doesn't really speak to me where I live. Like a lot of people will say, oh, well, we're going to celebrate Seeger Bloat. And I'm like, that has not a lot of meaning to me. The Seeger Bloat is just one of those that just doesn't speak to me right now.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to Yule, Yule's like the big one.
I celebrate everything.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Sorry.
To me, I celebrate everything on the calendar, but that's mainly because that's my job. It's kind of part of my job on our calendar, but because I'm trying to make sure and organize, we offer all of these things. And I would say that if you're interested, you can go to our website, trust.org/resources/holidays. And we have at the very bottom a Google Calendar. And you can actually add that to your own Google Calendar and actually have the best, in my opinion, online generic heathen holiday calendar we have. And that includes, that's my thoughts. I do, Emily.
I live my life by Google Calendar. Oh yeah, yeah. Lighting
Yeah.
with the sacred big, yeah.
How is, and I'm sorry, isn't that essentially just flint and steel in compact matter
Yeah, with a little
with
bit of
fuel?
propellant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we have to, and that's the thing, like, and I'm going to be honest, I'm going to toss this out here. I think the purity testing we have sometimes is very not inclusive.
Yeah.
Because starting a fire with flint and steel is great. What if you have a mobility disability or vision disability? How are you, if you're someone with, low vision, trying to start a fire is hard enough when it's dark-ish. Trying to start with a flint and steel, I might as well give up. It's the same kind of thing. You have to, we have to be flexible to also meet our commitment to inclusivity.
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of gets to the heart of why historicity is useful to a point. And then it's kind of, there's this great quote, and I believe it was from a rabbi, and I cannot remember their name. The past gets a vote, not a veto.
Yes.
And I'm blanking on the name. But that quote has really stuck with me. As somebody that does do sacred fires with flint and steel, it's like, okay, after a certain point, is this communicating the sacredness of the fire, or is it supposed to be like, okay, get this fire up and going? What's the point?
I think that, and that's important as you think about like what you're going to do as you celebrate Yule coming up, whenever you celebrate it. I think it's also, and something I do not just with Yule, but with every holiday, is I start to examine, is this serving purpose? If we do this in our, for instance, there were things we used to do for Yule when the kidlets were younger that we don't do anymore because, quite frankly, they were very appealing to young elementary school children that are not appealing to, they're almost teenagers now. I don't want to make little birdseed cakes with peanut butter and bread. They don't care. They want to sit on their phone and be like, whatever.
Oh, you've met teenagers.
Yeah.
Son, if and when you see this, I love you dearly. But we both know there are times at family gatherings where you would rather be on the phone and looking at a fire flicker rather than sit outside and freeze your ass off. So, and I get it. Like that's also, location. Like, what's the purpose of the location?
Yeah. But I think that's something that's, we have to, and even like ritual, like to me, every time I do a ritual, I do a reflection on it and I write down what went well, what didn't. And it helps you grow and make things better every year, in my opinion. Because quite frankly, tradition is just peer pressure from dead people.
Yeah, and some of it's no longer relevant. Sometimes the dead people, their opinion's nice and all, but it's their opinion.
Yeah. And I do think, to me, history, when I try to look at history, I'm not looking at history as a blueprint. I'm looking at history as a why. So it's kind of like if I looked at a house, right? I got to South Louisiana. I've never been there before. And I look at a house and I notice that there's a house and it's on like 10-foot stilts. And I want to build a house in this area. I don't want to just copy the house that was built because my taste is different. My needs are different. I might have a bigger or smaller family. But I also want to understand, why did they put all the houses are on 10-foot stilts? If I understand it's because hurricanes and flooding, I can then build my house to actually get done what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I look at heathen, the house is the same way. I try to understand why they did this. What was the purpose? Like, for instance, a really great example to me is the presence of eggs when you talk about spring rituals, early spring rituals. If you think about it, that's the very first bit of like fresh protein that they've had in months and months and months. Of course, it's sacred. Of course, it's important. So understanding that helps you then understand, okay, why are eggs so important? How then do I translate that into modernity? So just some thoughts there from me about how I approach it, as far as, looking at the future or the past and how to bring it into the present.
Yeah, for me, this time of year, I look at like the old Icelandic calendar, the old calendar systems. Actually, just the names of them, like Hrutmanath, which is kind of where we're in the middle of right now, translates something to the effect of Ram Month, and the other by names like Morgsugur, I believe is one of the other ones. It's Fat Sucking Month. Well, what's going on at this point in time? Well, the autumn sacrifice has already been committed. Any sacrifices that you're going to be making are around this time, and that's the meat that gets you through the winter. Good luck.
Yeah, yeah. This is basically further culling of the herd of the things that you know aren't going to make it through the winter, so that your animals make it through the winter because you have enough feed, and you make it through the winter.
Right. These are the animals that won't be joining you in the giant longhouse.
Yes. So always important to kind of understand. So like I said, that to me, I think is a very important thing to think about. So tonight I really wanted to talk about practical stuff, right?
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
Because here's the thing, we can talk about theory and theology until the cows come home. But Yule is next week. And a lot of people, you will start seeing questions, a lot of questions on Reddit, on Facebook, on TikTok, or wherever you go that are basically, how do I celebrate Yule? So the rest of the show, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to kind of talk about it from 4 perspectives. We're going to talk about how to celebrate Yule if you are by yourself, if you're the only person practicing heathen, how to celebrate Yule if you are a family but no kids, how to celebrate Yule if you're a family with kids, and how to celebrate Yule if you have a community, if you have a newly formed kindred or whatever. To me, I think that is a good roundup of how to discuss it, and I think that it's really important to kind of give people practical ideas. And keep in mind, this isn't the only way to celebrate it. It is just some ideas. Like, this is kind of one of those, it's like a listicle in video. It's like one of those 10 ways you can decorate a cake. Those aren't the only ways to decorate a cake.
Right.
It's just how you can. These are ways you can celebrate Yule.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially because we have so many folks who are solitary, hitting all these 4 major points will at least give you folks ideas on how you might want to celebrate your own holiday. And I think that for me is like that. This is your holiday, folks. Like, make of it what you will. This is your holiday. I'm not celebrating it for you.
Well, I'm hoping that if nothing else, we inspire you. And if you already
Absolutely.
celebrate Yule, and maybe this will inspire you to try something new, right?
Right.
So first of all, let's talk about a state that a lot of people find themselves in. Hi, I'm the only heathen I know. At least face to face.
Right.
That is incredibly common. I would say of the heathens I know, half of them are either alone or it's them and their partner, and that's it. So I will be honest, it's hard. It is hard. I lived with my parents for a couple of years while being heathen after my car accident, and awkward. So,
oh yeah, I bet.
I think one of the best things that I can toss out here is for everyone is I always try to encourage people to do something for your community. And when I say community, I'm not saying here talking about like the pagan or heathen community. I'm talking about your community where you live. To me, I think that's a really cool way to do that. Volunteering, especially if you have the time this time of year to volunteer. And it can be something as simple as taking an hour, going somewhere like to the park, picking up trash. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything huge. But I do think giving back at this time of year is always a good way to do that. And I think it's a lot of fun, in my opinion, and really meaningful. And it's something that you can do as a way to connect with other people who may not necessarily share your religion, but share your values.
Yeah.
And I think when you're by yourself, or even if when you're part of a small religion, connecting with people that share your values, they don't necessarily share your faith, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that expanding your idea, or at least who's in that circle you call community, just for this time of year, when everybody's like either huddled, living in Michigan, like either it's really warm in ways that is very weird for us Michiganders, or it's friggin' cold, in which case everybody's cuddled up and huddled up. And so for me, it's like that core attribute of hospitality extends out to the community as well as in your home. And what can I do to be hospitable? Taking your example of picking up trash at the park. If I extend that idea of community to the physical living world that I inhabit, that park is part of my community. The animals and plants that I am benefiting is part of my community. So even if it's something that, a physical person isn't going to see, you can benefit your community in ways that, big and small, touch countless lives that you're never going to see in detail.
The land spirits are just as much a part of your community as people. I think another really great way to celebrate, if you are by yourself, or if you're living with family or not, can be looking. To me, one of the ways, especially with Mother's Night, that I like to celebrate is to prepare recipes that were beloved by female members of my family. So I will dig through the old notes and the old cookbooks. In fact, my family put together cookbooks of my great grandmother's favorite recipes. So I'll dig through that, and I will put together, a meal for Mother's Night that are those things. And that, to me, is something you can do with family that isn't necessarily heathen, that I think that they will appreciate, because, oh, that's grandma's hot water cornbread. That's so-and-so. And it's a way for you are connecting then with the spirit of Mother's Night, but you're also sharing, in a way, you're sharing your values and stuff with non-heathen family in a way that you can connect with them on.
Yeah. And even if you're not the world's best baker, the fact that you're trying, the fact that you're making the effort, the fact that you're putting your hands to work in some capacity is important. And even if, you don't have the gift of cooking, getting together the materials so somebody can help you is a way of bringing that community function together. I am not the world's best baker, for instance, but one of the things I would love to do is to make a sourdough starter and to make bread. And that, for a lot of our families, for time out of mind, was something that they just did. And now it's like you have to think about it. And I'll also blame my partner getting me into British Bake Off. But it's something that I find very homey and warm and comforting, really, no matter what time of year it is, but especially around this time where you've got all the baked goods that come out, and the recipes from the grandmother, the things that really bring you to a sense of community, belonging, family. There's nothing quite like putting butter on a fresh slice of warm bread.
I think one of the things that I do that is so I have celiac disease. I was diagnosed before it was a thing people knew about. And so one of the things I have been able to do is try to take these recipes and adapt them. So for instance, I've been able to adapt my great grandmother's chess pie to be gluten-free. It took about 10 years.
I was going to say, that sounds rough.
It was, especially when I started doing it in the mid 2000s, before like AP gluten-free flour was a thing. And I had to make my own rice flour, Let me tell you what, a Vitamix blender was your best friend back then.
Oh my
Um, I used to go to the Asian grocery store and buy glutinous flour, like sushi rice, I mean, and use that and put it in a Vitamix and turn it into a flour to use to cook, or almond flour. I used to have to make my own flours back then. Tapioca flour. I used to have to do all of that.
Oh yeah, now we're spoiled for choice.
Yeah, now I can go to Walmart and buy generic Walmart brand gluten-free flour. Yeah, I'm spoiled now. But it's definitely. Heck, I had gluten-free challah the other day. It was amazing.
Ooh.
Because Hanukkah, and I have very good Jewish friends who love me. But yeah, I think that is a thing. It's all about the spirit is about trying, and
right.
the time spent and connecting. And to me, I sit and I think about those people, and I think about the memories I had with my great grandmother. I think about the things I learned from them and that kind of stuff. I think another really cool thing that you can do is just spend some time in front of a fire if you can. And if it's not a real fire, then YouTube is dead with fire streams. Right now you can go to Five Below and buy one of those little fireplaces with the fake fire in it. It's actually really pretty cute and real looking for $5 or I think it's $5.55. Because my coworker has one on their desk. It's really cute.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, he always wanted, every time our boss asked if anybody wanted something for their office, he would say he wanted a fireplace. So she got one for him. I work in the weirdest office. Yeah, I work in a great office. So I think that that's something we definitely can. I think it's something that we're definitely, I think spending time like that, connecting to the season is always important to me. Mm-hmm. I live in a very agricultural area. So some of that is me even driving to my parents'. I have to drive through all of these flooded rice paddies where duck hunting is happening, or they're preparing for duck season. I try to get in touch with whatever is seasonal in my part of the woods. I do Christmas stuff. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I go look at lights.
No.
I mean, all of those, there is nothing wrong to me. I go look at lights, decorating. Although Christmas trees are not heathen, are not pagan, I don't care what anybody says. Evidence says they came up in Germany in the 17th century. Don't come for me. They're not pagan. Greenery definitely is. And quite frankly, they took enough of our stuff. I'm taking theirs. I like decorating. I like putting up a tree.
Right.
I like making stuff. Make a Yule goat. That's so much fun. If you've never made one from scratch, it's a lot of fun.
I have not. We do have a family of Yule goats, but I bought mine.
One of the things I want to try next year is one of the things I want to do, my kid wants to do, and we didn't get to do it this year. There's a lot of reasons why, healthish reasons mostly. We're actually going to try to petition to put a Yule goat at the state capitol.
Oh, cool.
To go, with the all Christian ones and the menorah and the Festivus pole that's erected by the Humanist Society. So we figured we would, we've been planning on how to do it. We just weren't able to make it happen this year. But yeah, make a Yule goat, decorate. Greenery from the outside, I think, is wonderful. And, decorate the mantle, decorate whatever. I really kind of like to lean into those old world looking Santa Clauses because they look like Odin. I don't care what anybody says.
They do. One of the things I've been leaning into has been the Christmas gnomes and such as Tomtes. So we actually have two of these little guys chilling on our hearth now. We call them our home Tomtes, and they're little gnomes with the beards and the hat. And so it's been really nice. We'll leave them cups of coffee, and they have these little beanbag butts, so they sit on their own, so you don't have to lean them against anything. They're great. I love them. I love little stuff like that. And we've had our Yule tree up. We've got covered in all kinds of different symbols and meanings and things that communicate our family. And we just plug that little sucker in. It's not very big. It's like a little bit smaller than what I am. I'm 5'6", so this thing just plugs right in, sits right on the mantelpiece, and we just watch it for a little bit. And if we're trying to get the kid to doze off and just enjoy some time as a family, and that for me, like, I love that stuff. I love the little moments, right? And I've loved that really, whether I've had kids or not. Like a lot of those little moments.
And I think you can get crafty as well. There's tons of tutorials on how to make Scandinavian style straw ornaments, if that's your vibe. Or one of the really cool things that's come out recently is the rise of stuff called resincrete, and the various and sundry things that are like that. And it is a type of ceramic that doesn't need a kiln. I work with it a lot, but you can make stuff like this.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But you can buy like a set that has like ornament molds in it, and you can make these like porcelain like molds that you can paint, or porcelain like ornaments that you could paint, and you can do that. I mean, there's, I try to do stuff like that too. So every year I'm adding almost like a representation of my luck and my weird for the year to the tree, like making that ornament and adding something else, which I guess, we can also throw that into, if you have, this is really applicable to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm planning on making up a bunch of blanks for my kindred when they come over for Yule, so that we can decorate ornaments. I mean, I guess we can kind of move into, and that's for a couple, really anyone. I think that's such a great thing to do, is crafting this time of year. I'm also involved with the cult of the spinning goddess, and Yule starts our taboo, where we don't do any, we practice taboos. There are certain taboos. If you're involved, I'm involved, of course, with the, for those of you who haven't caught on, I cover my hair. Look at this. For some people who are involved with the head covering community and that are heathen, they may only cover for ritual, but they exercise a taboo during these holy periods, like Yule, where they cover their hair. Or for me, for instance, during certain spans or observances, I will only wear dark hair coverings.
I was going to ask if you had
certain things.
Okay, yeah. I was just going to ask if there was symbolism with the colors.
Right now, it's mostly just matching my clothes, but during Yule, I don't necessarily have one, except for Yule, not so much, mainly because I don't cover as much, because I don't tend to cover unless I'm in public. So most of the time of Yule, I'm home. So, but if I'm out, although I do tend to be I do try to make myself more festive, and like I will add more ornamentation. I got some beard ornaments, but I'm going to clip them on my actual little.
Oh, I've seen like the little lights and such.
Yeah, but they have little hair clips on them. And so somebody on one of my groups got some and clipped them on her hijab. And I'm like, that's brilliant. So
that's really cool.
But it's stuff like that. It's little things about finding ways to connect more deeply with especially this time of year, finding ways to connect more deeply, whatever that is for you. Some people will use this time to meditate. It's a great time to meditate. It's a great time to read. I have a friend who used to spend Yule committing to read so many, books in that time frame. Like she would commit to read 4 books during Yule.
Holy hell! Okay.
It helps when you're single and live alone.
That's fair. And I think for me, this especially this time period, especially when we get snow, for me, not fun to drive through, but very helpful and very meditative. I don't know, just the way that the snow falls and the crispness of the air, it feels very cleansing and very, it's like the world is breathing with me. And
yeah, I don't really understand that. Sorry. When we get snow here, it's a catastrophe and everyone's freaking out.
That's fair. I'm also very lucky in that I live on the edge of a forest that I can walk down, and we have shrines down near the forest's edge, and we have a shrine for the Dvergar and various other beings. And for me, this time of year is very meditative, especially because we don't have any more goddamn mosquitoes. Oh my god!
That I empathize with. I grew up in a town that literally their annual festival is known as Mosquito Fest.
Oh my! Oh
yeah.
No.
Yeah. One other thing that and this is something I've recently discovered and started, and I'm actually going to do tomorrow, so I'm pretty excited. Labyrinth walking. If you live somewhere,
yes.
So there's a website, and if you just Google Labyrinth Finder, there's a website where you can go in and put where you live, and it will tell you every publicly available labyrinth near you within 50 miles. I found out that there are 17 labyrinths within 50 miles of me. And one of them is beautiful, and it's at the Ark. They just finished building it behind the interfaith house of. We have an interfaith prayer house, like temple thing in town. So tomorrow I'm doing a class with the International Center for Religion and Diplomacy, and after I finish that, I'm going to mosey my way out to the labyrinth tomorrow.
That's
and
awesome.
Take some time to do meditative walking. And now I've been sitting here all day going, I could build a labyrinth in my backyard. I could. I'm going to do that. So, but yeah, it's that kind of thing. You're like, you really start thinking about, I mean, to me, I think that's really cool. And like, it's yet another way to connect, and to pray and meditate. And I'm not someone who does well with sitting meditation. I don't.
No, me either. I have ADHD. I can't do it.
I do active meditation, and so that is one of the ways to do that. That I think is really, really cool. So couples who, for families, especially without children, that kind of is my wheelhouse. I'm gonna toss a couple ideas out here so everything we've said before. And I would also kind of argue, okay, also probably solitary, but I was thinking about this. If you're someone who's into making mead, this is a great time of year to put away like a sacred bottle or two for this. I have several friends who will make Yule and Midsummer mead, and then drink the Yule mead at Midsummer and the Midsummer mead at Yule.
Nice. So, I like this.
That's
I may have to
also a great time. It is a great time, I think, to really connect as adults in romantic relationships, or in other very close relationships, to take time and to be, to spend time together, to really focus on that. Watch stupid movies. Watch Die Hard. I mean, watch Christmas Vacation. I mean, I feel like sometimes I have to tell people it is okay to watch Christmas movies. It is okay to indulge in these things. There's nothing wrong with it as a heathen.
No, not at all.
Sit down and marathon Great British Bake Off. This last season was great.
Oh, it was. I loved it. Yeah,
except I kept watching The Interpreter and like trying to read what they were saying. My brain knowing like logically this is British Sign Language and I know American Sign Language, but yet thinking I can somehow understand British Sign Language, which I can't. But because British Sign Language and American Sign Language are completely different, because American's based on French.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't.
Yeah, in fact, British Sign Language is primarily two-handed finger spelling, whereas American is one. There's a whole bunch of differences. I can nerd out about this for quite a while. That's why French Canadians and Americans can all speak to each other in sign language, and British people and Saudi Arabians can speak to each other in sign language, because Saudi sign language is based on British. Yeah, I worked in the office of the interpreter for a long time when I was in school. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of time cooking together, baking together. I think the main thing is spending time together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And really making it a time about family and connecting.
Yeah, a lot of the things that happen around this time, for anybody that's in Michigan, as soon as September 14th rolls around or October 19th, where your family members are. It's deer hunting season.
Oh yeah, it's Arkansas, same thing.
Yeah, our archery extends from October 1st to the 14th, and then December 1st to the January 1st. So like that, for a lot of people, like if people disappear for a weekend, we don't even question it. We're like, yeah, we know. It's just a question of how many tags they're coming home with.
Yeah.
For us, like that holds more meaning than some other practices that people hold around this time of year. Like people have got to hit their hunt at least, one time during the year. I know that there are people who are like, some people will have family get-togethers in the summer. Their whole shindig is taking the kids out or taking their spouse out for a weekend hunt, and that is like the thing they do together. And wherever you find your traditions, go for it.
Oh yeah. I personally, my husband and I, neither one of us hunt. Although I grew up in a family that did that. I was a competitive shooter. I was a nationally ranked competitive shooter when I was in my teenagers. I used to really enjoy it. I used to enjoy hunting before I started losing my vision. That being said, I think that that's really cool, and I love it. And, one of my coworkers, her and her husband have gone out several weekends deer hunting. And for us, it's deer hunting and duck hunting, and it's a huge part of the culture here. And I think that's I think that's super cool and important. And once again, I love it because when you go out and deer hunt or duck hunt or whatever, that is a disconnecting of technology. You are out there, you're spending time with people in the woods. And I think that's so important. Part of me wishes I could start hunting. If I could find a way to go deer hunting without a gun. Problem is around here that's dangerous to go out in a lot of those places without a gun, because we have wild boars, we have feral hogs and that kind of stuff. So it's very dangerous to go out without a gun, and we have bears. Right. So
oh, okay, yeah. I live in Southeast Michigan. It's deer are thick as thieves around here sometimes.
Well, we have a lot of deer as well, but the problem is that is it going to be a deer, or our feral hog population has just exploded in the last 10 years. So it's just not safe necessarily to go in a lot of those places without a gun.
Gotcha.
So, and I don't feel safe with a gun because of my vision. But if I could find a way just to go sit in a deer stand for a day and just sit out there with a book, I would be real happy.
Man, you want to talk about
I don't really want to hunt.
Right.
Yeah, I don't really want to hunt. I just want to go out sit in a deer stand for a day. But yeah, I think that those are really important. I think this is also a great time of year to, one of the things that I think is important, and one I've been working on this time of year that's a great Yule project, is go outside and learn to identify plants without their leaves, trees without their leaves.
Yeah, okay, hard mode, sure.
Yeah. But it's important if, to me, I think it's kind of important, and that's part of my, once again, kind of part of my Ozark traditional folk magic.
Right.
Because if I need, trees are such a huge part of that. And if I need a specific tree for a specific working, I need to be able to identify whether it has leaves or not.
That's a fair point. Yeah. Can you tell your various trees apart? Can you tell your various plants that are still clinging to life at this point? What's clinging to life? What's dormant?
In Arkansas, a lot of things, because we haven't really hit freezing more than a couple of nights.
Oh,
it was 60. It was 68 degrees. It was 65 degrees today.
Wow.
I'm wearing short sleeves and capri pants right now. Yeah.
Not us.
And let me tell you what, you want to talk about like shock. I used to spend Christmas in Houston, where we would wear shorts, and sometimes we'd drive the hour south and go to the beach. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think finding also kind of local traditions and embracing them are also super cool.
Yeah, because like trying to have Yule when you're fighting with the weather, like so, yeah, like you're like you said, you're wearing t-shirts and capris. Like you can do that here. We're just going to look at you like you're the folks who like to really like walk around in Ann Arbor, you know.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it is, I think, super, it's yet another thing. It's kind of like embracing what you have locally. But I think, you know, especially if you're like in a married, dating, otherwise romantic entanglement, you know, going and enjoying those like hot cocoa lighting things and stuff as a part of Yule are great. And I also think having a chance to sit down and have also being able to share with your partner those family recipes are great. And I think they're wonderful. It's something I really enjoy doing. And I'm actually really excited because my mother-in-law is moving in with us. So I'm actually really excited to share those recipes with her and be able to share, you know, some of that stuff with her, because our families are both from the same, you know, I live in Arkansas. My husband lives in Arkansas. We met in Arkansso. Our families are both from West Virginia.
Gotcha.
So we share kind of some of those same backgrounds. So so let's talk about kids.
Yeah,
this is
let's
more
talk about
house
kids
than mine, because I ain't got none.
Oh,
so I
man.
say that I raised 3 children that weren't mine, and they're all in their mid to late 20s. So
gotcha. Well, at least for our family, time with the kids right now is interesting, because on the one hand, you know, you've got all these different pressures of, especially for like the more grown-up kids, exam crunch. So for me during this time of year, the concern is more like, what can I do to help mitigate their stress? What can I do to help mitigate the exam and project fatigue? What can I do to support the kids during this time? Because they're going through it. Because on top of everything else they got going on for this time of year, maybe they have a significant other, maybe they don't, or they have several significant others, maybe they don't. They're probably stressing because most of their teachers are having to throw exams and tests and all this other crap at them. So at least like some of my concern for this time of year with the kids is like, what can I do to mitigate your stress? The other part of it is like getting to, like, when it comes to gift giving, which is a big deal for our family this time of year. What do you actually want? And what is it that you're looking for in terms of gifts? Like when my son, for instance, like finally sends me a list, even though I've been asking him since October, you know, I can kind of get a vibe for like what he's actually looking for this time of year. And so much pressure can be put on a family. You know, I've got to get the perfect thing. Well, no, you really don't. What you need to do is listen to your kids. Like, what are they telling you? What are they looking for? Not just in terms of gifts. What are they looking for in this time of year? Like, what is going to be meaningful for them? And there have been times where, you know, we've had a really big elaborate setup for Yule, and, you know, we've done the family prayers in front of the hearth, and they've been really like, oh. And then some days, some years, it's been just, we're going to vibe in front of the fire and just enjoy each other's company. And that's been perfect. And so this time of year, especially, like, blatantly ask your kids if you don't know. Blatantly ask them, like, hey, what do you actually want out of this Yule celebration? What's actually meaningful to you? What of our family traditions do you really like? What doesn't make sense to you? Sometimes the gift you give your kid is just the time, and the gifts are either ancillary or they're just something that's a tradition that's kind of, if you're overdoing it every year and you're driving yourself mad with, oh, I got to get the perfect thing. I don't think that's really what most kids are really looking for. They're looking to connect with you. And some of the most connective practices we have in our family is just regular night prayers. And sometimes our holidays aren't much more than grafting on whatever holidays we've got into our night prayer routine. And sometimes that's all your kids are looking for, is just that chance to connect with you, connect with the gods, the ancestors and the spirits, the Vetir, and just taking that time out and having that peace. Because they need time. Like something I've been noticing in the comments between Justin and Emily has been, this reflective need during this time of year. And your kids need that too. Sometimes they need that alone time. Sometimes they need to be in a space where we can all reflect together. And sometimes that involves plugging the tree in and just chilling. So with kids during Yule, I do a lot of talking with the kids because, they're wildly different ages. I've got a 17-year-old and a 6-year-old. And what works for one is not going to work for the other. And so it's kind of what's going to mean something to this one versus that one. What's going to communicate the season as we celebrate it. So there's, the reflective listening thing is something that I try to do, especially as we get closer. Like what's the vibe they're picking up from school? What's the feeling they're picking up in themselves? What do they want to see out of any rituals we do together? What's going to really hold meaning for them, And so that kind of really that kind of feeling also applies to me when I'm looking at kindred or larger community gatherings as far as Yule goes. Like if this Yule log thing doesn't make sense to them, it's okay to discard it, and it's okay to bring in, like, let's light a Yule tree. If what
let's
makes
light a Yule goat.
Yeah, let's light a Yule goat on fire. That's fine. I am all for that.
That's actually part of my tradition every year. It's monitoring to see if someone has burned down the Yule goat in Sweden.
Yes. Oh, good. I'm not the only one.
Nope.
I dig it. I'm always curious to see if this year is really weird because it looks like the birds are actually disassembling it.
Yes, it does.
Which is buck wild to me.
Yeah. Sadly, they're not going to be able to trick. I was really hoping they'd trick another American tourist.
Oh man, that sounds like such an American. When I heard that from my partner, I was like, "You're kidding! They did not." Oh yeah, they totally, totally roped an American into doing it. I'm like, well, I can't say much for that.
I think as far as knowing, like, it really is important to understand, like, what are people looking for? What is important? What is going to serve your group, whoever that is, when you're talking about ritual or holidays, and I think right now, especially, we live in such a precarious time. I think it's the best way to describe it. That it's important to have really, to me, one of the things I'm really focused on right now is having things that are very grounding, very, and I mean that in the sense of grounding in who you are, grounding in what your faith is, grounding in what's important, because the world is so that.
Yeah. For me, I do a lot of divination around this time of year, and I know that for a lot of folks, this is about this and winter nights is when they do a lot of divination to kind of like peek at the coming year. And for me, Yuletide is also a really good check-in period, kind of seeing where you're at with your gods, your ancestors, your Vetir, seeing where you're at between your community members. This is a good time to just check in, to reflect. It's a really good time as a community, whether it's just you and a partner or you and a whole slew of kids. Everybody kind of just check in to see how everybody's doing. And I divination for me serves kind of like two main purposes. It's seeing what's coming down the pike, of course, but it's also like taking time to sit down and actually communicate with the Gnregen that I share my life with. And for me, because they're so intertwined with my life, and because you know, I wouldn't be here doing this even without their interference / blessings. I take time out to really have a sit down and figure out what's what and where I'm at. And divination can be an internal thing too. You can figure out where your own head's at with it. And so for me, like a lot of these questions that we've been posing, really, like depending on how you want to apply them, even just having your kid do a rune draw and see maybe what the next 3 months holds. My youngest really enjoys doing things like when we go out for coffee, for instance, and we're going to breakfast together as a family. She'll help me draw coffee runes. So I've got these tattoos in my arm of the runes, and she'll just pluck them and put them in the coffee for me. And those are my coffee runes for the day. And it's little stuff like that where you can get your kids involved in magic. And bringing that magic, whether it's the Yuletide spirit or whether it's divination or whether it's hey, do you want to bring the fire around and light the first fire of the year? Whatever ways that you can get your kids involved is all to the good.
I agree, and I think it is very important just really to model that kind of behavior, right? Like you want to, because to me, like I, as a kid, you would be told so much about what to do, but rarely would you see it modeled. And I think that modeling that behavior is a lot more important.
Yeah. And I think even more so than modeling is getting, especially for the kids in my life, is getting them directly involved in ways that make sense to them. Mm-hmm. Because it's one thing to explain what a sacred fire is about. It's another thing to have your kid actually light one. Mm-hmm. And that for me, besides the immense surge of pride as a father, it kind of really brings it home in a very visceral way that they get to feel in their hands. Like,
yes.
And whether it's laying down an offering or whether it's making a prayer or in my daughter's case, leading prayers is a big deal for her because she's little and she wants to be the leader. Giving your kids the grace to take the lead and show you the meaning of the spirit of this holiday, and giving my kids the reins every now and again has been really instructive for me as a heathen. Not because I can't make my own choices, but because the choices they make illustrate something different that I might not have seen or thought about or haven't thought about in a long time. And so why are they making that choice? Why are they doing that? And, my kids still surprise me sometimes and I love it. And it's something that I look forward to whenever we get together and do things together as a family. To a certain degree, I never quite know what they're going to take away, right?
It is, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
For us as in the kindred, one of the very first things that the kids learn is the end of ritual kind of prayer that came from Raven Kindred North like 30 years ago, from the gods to the earth to us, from us the earth to the gods. And even now, Bunny, my godson, will, even though he's 12 now and he's kind of too cool for this most of the time. I love you, Bunny. I love you. He is. We've always encouraged him to be the one to pick the tree, pour out the offering, as part of his, and that's since he was very little. Mm-hmm. And that's always kind of been part of encouraging the kid to be part of ritual in whatever way they want or whatever way they can. And also, and I will say, as someone who was brought up in a very, where they didn't encourage questions, also having that freedom to say, if they don't feel like participating, that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, gods. I'm so happy you brought that up. I am so happy you brought that up. There are some times where my kids are like, no. I just have to. Am I going to give them the freedom? In which case, I have to lump it. Like, I can be really excited to share my religion. That's nice. I can be really excited that we get to share our religion together. But if they're not feeling it, you can't make them feel it.
Exactly. And I think that's super important to remember is, kids are kids. Kids are going to be kids. And kids are, especially when I will say that another thing I will toss out here is if you live close to that you might want to do if your kids aren't necessarily feeling the heathen thing, but you want to participate in something as a family, is if you have a Unitarian church close to you, see if they've got an interfaith holiday service. I know ours does. Many of them do, where they will have a service that is kind of the spirit of the season. They will have, a lot of times they will have people from different religious groups come in and participate. And that is also a wonderful way to connect with community and allow your kids to see all of the beautiful, wonderful traditions that are taking part this time of year.
Yeah. It was really something. I had a Hinduism 101 course, and one of the things we were required to do was visit at least 2 temples in the area. And we are blessed with amazing communities around here that are very welcoming. And so one of the things I got to do was I got to take my son to 2 different puja, which was amazing.
Yes.
If you have communities in your area, I highly recommend doing that, because the contrast and the comparisons and the conversations and just, what does this mean? What does that mean? Just watching their brains light up alone was just worth going. But them getting to see, oh, these are my neighbors. This is how they do things.
Yeah. Or, there are, for us, this time of year, we have a giant menorah. Cool. And every night, like when I say giant, the thing is so tall, they have to have a ladder to light it each night.
Holy crap.
And every night during Hanukkah, they do a lighting. And so that's another opportunity here to take your kids and, to experience something outside of there. Because once again, to me, that's part of hospitality. That's part of community. That's part of our faith.
Absolutely.
And I think that is important. So let's talk just a minute about kindreds, and let's talk about everything once again that we said before. You could turn something like cooking dishes into a family dish potluck for Mother's Night. Of course, we are going to, for my kindred, I'll kind of talk about, what we traditionally will do. We will get together. We will have a bloat. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what a bloat is a sacrifice. Usually it is a Yule goat for this particular ritual that has been constructed. So I made a Yule goat back at winter nights, and then we will sacrifice it at Yule. That's something I tend to do. So we'll have the Yule goat that we will sacrifice, and then we will have dinner of some sort. We'll have a feast. We will have sumbul. And at that time, during third round of sumbul, which sumbul is ritualized drinking and toasting, although none of us drink. So by that point, we're usually breaking out the coffee. We sumbul with coffee, with apple juice, with sweet tea, because it's the South, I mean, just whatever. But none of us, like my kindred, we're all sober. So we do whatever we feel it, And so then we will do our, so we will do that. And then sometimes some years, if we want to focus on a particular god or goddess, we will make a list of gods and goddesses, and we will roll a die.
Nice.
And decide who we're going to focus on for that next year. We will hang out. We will enjoy each other's company. And then this is actually the first year in a long time where you're going to try to do Greet the Sun. But that's kind of, we're going to sit around on my porch, around my fire pit, and drink coffee and hang out and talk and just enjoy each other's company. I mean, that's pretty much it. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be, we might paint ornaments. We might do some crafty stuff, but that's just because we're all artsy craftsy people. Like we're just all artists, and that's just kind of what we do. But it can be as simple as sitting around the fire and talking. Like, it doesn't have to be high fancy ritual. It can be something fairly simple.
I think one of the things that I really appreciate about my kindred is we don't generally get together too much for holidays, just because our schedules are so incredibly different. But we have regularly connective times where we get together, and it might be around a sacred fire, or it might be just sharing a meal. And that for us is, especially as we start getting towards this time of year, like, that connection really can help us get through the more challenging bits with our families at Christmas time. And so, like, we all kind of, like, I think, into a certain degree, kind of crave that connection. So it really doesn't have to be complicated. Most of what our plans are for this kind of thing is get together, share a meal, enjoy each other's company. And it's really just that simple. That is the gift we give to each other. It's the time and the energy that we put into that meal.
Yeah. And I think that is super important. For a lot of us, our love language is gift giving. So that's kind of how we connect. But I do think it is really important. I think it's super cool to be able to connect with people and be able to have that incredibly close relationship. I think that there's an old Russian proverb that says you don't truly know a man until you've shared a pound of salt. Now, that does not mean eating a pound of salt all at once. What that means is over the course of many shared meals and experiences.
I'm sorry.
You should not poison yourself.
I was just imagining this Russian guy just tearing off a chunk at a time. Oh, man. Yeah, please don't do that, folks. You will poison yourself.
Yeah. And so to me, I think that is, it's togetherness. And I think that's so important. And it's about, I'll be honest, I've had a rough year. We very, very recently, like in the past, lost my father-in-law. There have been a lot of other things going on. And so, this time of year, I think, is very important to connect, to spend time with people you love. And if you do feel, I do want to put this out here kind of as we wrap up. I do think it's very important. If you do feel alone this time of year, if you're struggling with substance abuse or mental health, Heathens in Recovery is here. I do know that they are having weekly meetings still. So if you do need that support, those meetings are there, as well as the Facebook group. If you're a Troth member, we have a Discord channel as well. So that support is there if you need it, especially this time of year can be very triggering for people who are recovering addicts like myself. And I just want to put that out there for anyone who might be struggling. Please know that those resources are available for you. Because like I said, you're not alone. You are not alone. Also, I would say that if you are feeling alone, next week we will be streaming a Yule ritual you're welcome to join in and be a part of. So you can be part of our family as we, have that ritual next week. And I think that's also incredibly important for all of us.
Absolutely.
And that's part of the reason we do it, because it is hard. I used to work in radio and TV, and I worked so many holidays where I was alone. I was the only person in the building. Like, I was literally alone so many holidays. I know how hard that can be. Back then, there would be like conference call, 12-step meetings I'd call into on occasion because I just needed to hear someone else's voice. So I'm hoping we can at least provide that, another voice, a place to connect and chat. And just know you're not alone, even if it feels like it. You're always welcome to connect with us. And
please do.
please do. Please reach out. Please do. Especially this time of year, because when you add to all the family stresses, the holiday stresses, and then the seasonal depression, it just is going to rack right up.
Right.
And friendly reminder from my therapist, family knows how to push your buttons because they installed them.
Oh, I love that quote. I do. And it's so true.
It is.
If you find yourself struggling this time of year to feel connection, whether to other people, to the Ginregen, the gods, the ancestors, and the spirits, you are valid in that struggle. Not only are you valid in that struggle, you are. Oh, please go ahead. I mean,
no, that's me.
That's
me. That's me. Hi. It's me. Hi. I'm the problem. It's me.
And I think, if you can't feel that connection, it's also entirely fine to say, hey, I'm not feeling this time of year. I can't handle this right now. Or, hey, I'm not feeling this right now. Can you do things in my stead? Like, that's part of why we have community. Like, if you can't light a candle, ask somebody to light a candle for you. If you can't hold a vigil, ask somebody to hold a vigil for you. And the things that you can't do, you don't have to do all on your own. You can ask for help. That's what community is here for.
And I will say, even the smallest thing you do is a small thing, is something you did. If all you can do, because I will freely admit I'm struggling, my mental health and some other things, some health issues. If what I do get done is what I get done. Yep. The gods understand. The gods know what's going on, right?
Yeah. And so the ancestors have been there. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I take a lot of comfort in ancestors and ancestor worship as a practice, because it doesn't matter what my mood is. The ancestors have been there.
My ancestors, especially my more recent ancestors, certainly know my family. They know what they can do or capable of. But I do think that it's really, if all you can do is light a few candles, congratulations, you've done more than a lot of people. I think that's important. Like, it doesn't have to be like, I'm not a fan of high church heathenry. Because to me, that just doesn't make sense, right? It just doesn't make sense for me. And so to me, if our rituals are not, you can go back, if you want to go back and watch one of my rituals, I did a ritual for Winter Nights for Alpha Blot, I think, or Disa Blot, one of the two. I don't know, I've slept. You can see I'm not a high church heathen. It doesn't have to be super fancy. It's, literally a prayer, pour something in a bowl, it's nothing, a lot of what I do, like when I make something to sacrifice, it's not necessarily because you have to make something to sacrifice, but because that's something I enjoy and I get a lot from doing it. I think, and at the end of the day, we're not a religion with a lot of rules, so it's okay to experiment and find what works for you and do it.
Yeah, like this year, actually the community that I was part of started off last Yule by doing the Aun celebration that Rune Hjarnar Rasmussen's talked about. And as a community, we got together, our community member Josie baked a representation of Aun, and we ripped him apart and then set him on fire to start Yule. That was a lot of fun. And so if you need something totally fresh, new, and something you haven't really tried before, this might be the year to try it. Even if it doesn't, if it falls flat, that's okay. You're trying.
One year we've never done it again, and we'll probably never do it again because it was a disaster. One year we tried to make a sun wheel for Yule, back to sun, and that went over like a pregnant high jumper.
That is a unique craft, and I am probably not the guy for it.
So probably not going to do that again. One time, and here's the thing: like, I've had some disasters. One time, we had a public Yule ceremony for like the greater pagan community, and some guy showed up, and we didn't know him, but it was a public ritual. Okay, whatever. And the guy says, "Do you want to see a black hole?" and then proceeds to pull his pants down and show us his anus,
Oh,
and then
my
walked
God.
off.
Oh my God.
Like, laugh. If things go bad, laugh. It's
Yep.
funny. It's not that serious, guys. It's not that serious. And I think if you take nothing else from this, is please, yes, lighting the sacred big still clear. Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
I'm just hoping that if nothing else, you will, yes, and you'll talk about reflection. Yes. I think that if nothing else, guys, just laugh, enjoy it, have a great time, have a safe and wonderful time. And, don't stress out too much.
Yep.
Because life's too short.
Absolutely. And if nothing else, give yourself a gift and give yourself the grace of having the best close to a year that you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next week, pre-tape show with Yule stories. And then the next Friday night, I'm going to try to get as many of our co-hosts as we can to talk about 2023 Heathenry, a year in review, and what our hopes for 2024 are. So even for folks who aren't going to be here, who are part of our rotation, I'm going to be harassing you and having you hopefully share at least what your hopes for 2024 are.
Sounds good.
Because I think that's important. I think that we need to reflect on the year that was and also talk about where we want to go. And, to me, it's part of the move in heathenry where we stopped defining ourselves by what we're not and started defining ourselves of who we are.
You got to walk this path? Damn.
It's time to start defining like our goals and our dreams and where we want to go.
Sounds good. With
that, everybody have a wonderful Yule. Have a wonderful holiday season. May everyone be blessed, safe. May no one get weather they do not want. That's the way I say it, because if you want snow, by all means. But where I live, if we got snow, it would be chaos. People don't drive here. Oh. So may you get the weather you want. May you get a good time with those you love. And most importantly, may the gods and the ancestors bless you, keep you, and take care of you. And may you come out of this season better than going in. And with that, everyone have a great one, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye.